We are starting the lesson 9, and we're getting Sunday school books for the ones who don't have it. Joe, do you have yours?
No.
Okay.
Me and Effie were looking for them and didn't get one.
Okay.
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 But after the class is over,
Yes.
I have a prayer to put up there.
Okay.
And so if you want to wait till after, it's fine.
That's just no problem. But we have been having some really good lessons about Jesus going to the cross. And even though we had our Easter lesson on that, then we went back and we're catching up on that. But this is a very familiar lesson, and this is the one of Jesus praying in the garden. And we concentrate on that, and we also concentrate on the disciples, because the disciples kept falling asleep. And that seems to be one of those things that people either focus in on, or that's just kind of an aside to the stories. But we're going to learn some lessons today from that, and how Jesus responded to the disciples on what that they were doing. We might even learn a couple of life lessons today from that. But you know, as we start these lessons, as we're talking and putting up our prayer board, life can be hard. Life can be hard every single day. You know, health professionals tell us we're supposed to drink 8 ounces, all water every day. We're supposed to eat fruits and vegetables, get 8 hours of sleep, exercise. How many of us can really do that every single day? And even at that, we have health issues. We have health issues. We have job pressures. Everybody in here has a job, whether it's a job or what, it's a job. And we have family issues. And family issues and all of these other issues at times can move us out of our comfort zones. And when that happens, we know God has a plan for us, but it's so easy to start wondering if he's forgotten about his plan for us. And that's what this lesson to me is all about. And so we're going to start, and we're going to we're going to chop our verses up a bit today. And I had texted Joellen about this because the verses that y'all have are a little bit more together. And so when we do these verses, they're going to be a little chopped up, so it's going to be a little bit more clarity to it. So Joellen, if you would read 39 through 42.
Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples followed him. On reaching the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done."
Yours be done. He led them to a very familiar place for them. It was the Garden of Gethsemane. And this is where they had prayed many times. He told them, he had, in, I believe, Mark's gospel, he had 8 disciples further away. He had Peter, James, and John a little closer to him. And then he went what they called a stone's throw away to start praying. And he told them, pray, pray, pray for yourselves that you may not enter into temptation. That you may not enter into temptation. Isn't it amazing that he did not ask for prayer for himself? He's asking them to pray for themselves. Now this is a life lesson that we can learn. He wanted to keep the disciples on fire with prayer for themselves. And to me, the life lesson is for us to stay on fire through prayer for ourselves gives us strength to pray for other people. So if you stay on fire through prayer, and if you notice fellowship, Jesus wanted fellowship with these disciples. On fire through prayer, on fire through fellowship, and on fire through the Word. Jesus had been teaching constantly with his words, We now have the Word. So we have these three things to keep on fire to help us with our daily struggles. Prayer, keep on fire. Fellowship. This community is so important for us. Just sitting around talking about the prayer needs and then hearing the Word. These are mighty weapons in our arsenal that we had. So Jesus also needed to be alone with his Father, that he could be praying. He wanted the disciples there, but he wanted to be alone with his Father. When you are visiting with a friend, or you are even counseling with a friend, or a friend is counseling with you, and maybe they are just beating themselves up over something, and they're saying, I shouldn't have done it that way, I wish I'd done it this way, on and on and on. And you say something like this, if you haven't used this, I don't know what planet you live on, and you'll go, you're only human. Haven't you ever said that? You may say it to yourself when you're beating yourself up. You're only human. That's the way I want you to see Jesus right now. Jesus was fully God, but Jesus was fully human. When he was saying these words, he was looking at the realities of the physicalness of the cross, of the crucifixion. He didn't want to leave his disciples. It was kind of like, I have more to teach them. They're my kids. And he also knew that he was going to face the wrath of God on the cross by having to take on the sins of the world. He was fully human, praying to his God, asking, if this cup can be taken from me, but not my will, but yours be done. Without exception, we should always pray this way. We should always pray this way. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I have never used the word cup in a positive way. I've never said, Lord, please take this cup of goodness away from me. It's always in a bad, something I want changed. Lord, if you could please change the situation. If Jesse could please, if they could have a kidney for him. These types of cups that we're talking about, that Jesus was talking about. Something that when you say, not my will, but thine be done, you are asking the Lord to bring you in alignment with him, because he already has the plan, but you want to be in alignment with what he has for you. But your prayer is open to him, telling him exactly, Lord, you can't really want to do it this way, but if this is the way it has to be, your will be done. And that is what Jesus is doing. He's being fully human, but he is fully God. Joellen, if you could now read 43 through 46.
Then an angel from heaven appeared to him, strengthening him. Being in anguish, he prayed more fervently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground. When he got up from prayer and came to the disciples, he found them sleeping, exhausted from their grief. Why are you sleeping? He asked them. Get up and pray, so that you won't fall into temptation.
Jesus wasn't abandoned during this time, was he? He had that angel that strengthened him, just like an angels strengthened him when he had the 40 days of fasting and the temptation by Satan, but his continued anguish in praying was the pending passion of the cross that we've talked about. His sweat becoming like blood falling to the ground. This was his emotions under attack. He was in such anguish that the sweat was his emotions, that it was like blood. If you will notice that Luke, in his gospel, he does not focus in on the different times that Jesus woke up the disciples. This is almost like the final time that Jesus wakes them up, because this is Jesus. He already knows what the Father wants. So he is coming to the disciples. When he got up from prayer, this is the last time, he already knew what he was going to have to do. He found them sleeping, but Luke is the only one that says, exhausted from their grief. Have you ever been exhausted from your grief? Have you ever been prayed out? You just simply feel like you're going to give up. And that's what did Jesus say? When they were exhausted from their grief, what did Jesus tell them to do? Get up and pray. And you know why? It's just he knew the temptations that they were fixing to be heavily, heavily tested. And that's what Jesus keeps telling us. Get up and pray. Get up and pray. Because this is when Satan is at his worst. This is when Stevie says things like that, because Satan is at work. Satan is at work. So we see here that he said, get up and pray so that you won't fall into temptation. Not go back to sleep. Get up and pray. They were exhausted. Get up and pray. Jesus wasn't angry. He wasn't angry with them. He was still concerned with the temptations that they were facing. So some of that worse damage, I would rather tell me to run a mile down 1097 and I will land in a heap from physical exhaustion. But don't put me through emotional stress. I'm much better at physical stress. I think everybody in here would agree with that. Everybody would. So, Joellen, read 47 through 48.
While he was still speaking, suddenly a mob came, and one of the 12, named Judas, was leading them. He came near Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus said to him, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?
These two verses are so fascinating. And when I say that it's kind of like, oh no, this is the rest of the lesson, isn't it? But I won't tarry on these. But we have here two different things going on. We have a mob. We have nighttime. We have candlelight. We have all of these things going on. This mob included, now listen to this eclectic group: temple guards, chief priests, elders, all of these people that had been fired up about Jesus, all for the wrong reasons. All for the wrong reasons. This is the danger of a mob mentality that is on a mission. Once it gets this far, there's no stopping it. There's no stopping it. Right or wrong, it's going to go on. It's going to go on. And we have seen that happen right here, haven't we? Who would have thought we would ever see something like we saw at the Capitol? It defied I was just sick when I saw that. But it was a mob mentality. They just kept going on, right or wrong, and we know it was certainly wrong. Then we have Judas. Judas betraying the Messiah. This is why he used the phrase Son of Man, is that this is indicating, are you betraying the Messiah with a kiss? I mean, trusted. He knew what Judas was going to do, but it was the idea of the betrayal of a close friend. Have you ever been betrayed by a close friend? You know, the kind of betrayal that makes you catch your breath and just say, not her, or not him, or them. You know, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe, just like I'm sure people were surprised when they found out it was Judas. But you know, that's why we have this precious song, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. Listen to this. Do thy friends despise, forsake thee? Take it to the Lord in prayer. In his arms he'll take and shield you. Thou wilt find a solace there. That's because Jesus understands betrayal. And that's why we have such a friend. All of these words, I kept thinking, my goodness, it's hard to pick out just a few of these. This is a song that says, I understand your betrayal because of what I've gone through, because I was fully human, even though I was fully God. What a beautiful song. So we have the heartache that he went through, but he understands it like no other person can, like no other person. Joellen, if you can read 49 through 51.
When those around him saw what was going to happen, they asked, Lord, should we strike with the sword? Then one of them struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. But Jesus responded, no more of this. And touching his ear, he healed him.
You know, the Gospel of John, which we've studied, they identify Peter as the one who cut off the ear of the servant. And he didn't even wait for a response from Jesus. He didn't even wait. But what fascinates me about this is that Peter, at this time, was willing to die for Jesus. He has he's whacking off an ear and he's like this. He would have died for Jesus at this time. And yet within a short while, he denies that he ever knew Jesus. You see how Satan works? How he can turn someone around in such a little time. On a man that said, no, Lord, I would never do that. He draws a sword to protect Jesus, and then he's denying him. So that's why Jesus says, pray so that you will not enter into temptation. Jesus had warned them that they were going to be in hostility eventually, but this wasn't the time. This wasn't a time. It was a chaotic scene right now. It could have been disastrous for Peter because the authorities would have had to arrest Peter for that act. And so that's why Jesus had to step in, and he miraculously healed the servant's ear. Now, wouldn't you think that the people around the mob would have backed off with this miracle? My goodness, look at this. The ear's back on and it's healed. Mob mentality, they see only what they want to see, and they hear only what they want to hear. And that's the danger. That's the danger. What a shame that it could have all ended right here. But we know that this is God's will. This is God's will. So we can't be saying it could have stopped right here. I wish it had. We have our salvation plan in work here. We can't ever forget that component of this. So Joellen, if you can read 52 and 53.
Then Jesus said to the chief priests, temple police, and the elders who had come for him, "Have you come out here with swords and clubs as if I were a criminal? Every day while I was with you in the temple, you never laid a hand on me, but this is your hour in the dominion of darkness."
Those last words are so ominous. The dominion of darkness. The statement that he uses here to the chief priests, the temple police, and all of them, it really exposes their dishonor and convicts them of what cowards they were. But this is your hour indicates that the forces of evil appear to have the upper hand, don't they? But Satan has no authority over Christ. He has no authority. Nothing would happen here except by the will of the Father. Nothing. We can think that the enemy has control at times because it seems like they do. It certainly seems like they do. That's when we are more likely to yield to our emotions. It's more like this, what's the use? Because you feel like you're doing everything right and it just keeps seeming to get worse. But that's Satan working with your emotions, That's when you get the most really discouraged. And that's when we have to realize the life lesson of praying not to enter into temptation. That's when you may need to call someone and talk to someone to let them get you back on the right road of, God's not going to let you fall. God has a plan in this. God has had a plan in Gail with even the doctor that she saw, that this doctor was then going to be helpful in getting her sister into a doctor. These things do not weave themselves together. They're woven through the very fabric of God and how he plans for us. It's really amazing. We're not to live defeated lives. We're to live in victory because of what Jesus did. But a spiritual fog can happen so easily. And that's why we are to be alert to that spiritual fog on when it's happening. I can almost tell you when it's happening to me because I know myself so well. A little thing might happen over here or a little thing might happen over here, and I can just feel myself getting into this type of, I'll pick up my lesson to study and I can't focus. I can't keep my train of thought. And I can tell that the spiritual fog is kind of setting up. It can be such little things that start getting into big things. Do you know that a 7-block, city 7-block, if it is in total fog, that the amount of water that it takes to produce that fog is only a cup of water? So you see how easily Satan can use spiritual fog in your life. A little bit here. It doesn't have to be anything major. It can be little things that build up. Little spiritual fog. 7-block spiritual fog. 1 cup of water. But this is where prayer, community, into the Word. This is our power against spiritual fog, because that's what Jesus wanted the disciples to learn, because they were about to completely flip because they thought Satan had won. We can't ever think that Satan has won, can we? Because we know the victory. We've seen the victory because we know the resurrection. What a fantastic lesson. It just reinforces all of the goodness that we know. I really enjoyed preparing. I have enjoyed this study in Luke probably. I enjoy all of our studies, but this has been one of the better ones. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off right now.